In the world of Dead Space, there exists a collection of wonderful and sometimes sheer terrifying locations. However, like most things in this dark, eerie, and twisted universe, these locations too fascinate me. And so, like my video on all of the organizations of Resident Evil, I felt perhaps diverting my attention away from the entities of these stories and towards the environments of these worlds and locations. However, a little edit here. Some of these worlds weren't exactly what I had expected to see, but you will see what I mean later on. So this video will consist of my explanation of all of the locations and sectors of the human and Volantian territories. So let's begin, shall we? Like in our own history, Earth is the native homeworld of the humans in the Dead Space universe. However, not like in our own personal history in the events prior to Dead Space. The planet had been going through several changes to its climate, with the ending of a war between two superpowers, the United States of America and the Soviet Union's Russia. With the demand of the human population, however, came with devastation to the environment. Mass pollution would cause a chain reaction that would wipe certain areas of the planet off the map. These would include New York City, Venice, and in 2215 it is believed that Washington had too been swept off the map. The Earth would be categorized into several sectors as per with the initial Earth government's organization of these areas. United States Sector, Central American Sector, South American Sector, Scandinavian Sector, Pan-European Sector, African Sector, North Asian Sector, and Southeast Asian Sector. The places that are still habitable are assumed to be Alberta hubs, Quebec, North Carolina hubs, Puerto Chicxulub, Turin hubs. The continents that are assumed to be habitable for the most parts are North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, and Antarctica. The known inhabitants of Earth are as follows: Chava, Craig Markov, Ellie Langford, Groot Goof, Hanford Carfusia, Hideki Ishimura, Howard Phillips, Isaac Clarke, Krax, Lexine Weller, Marla Jansen, Michael Altman, Natalia Deshanoff, Nicole Brennan, Octavia Clarke, Paula Clarke, Stevens, Terence Kine, Tim Kaufman, Tom Cirello, Vera Cortez, and Gabe Weller. The known locations of the Aegis Cluster are as follows: the Aegis VII Colony, the Aegis VII Sovereign Colony Research Station, and the Aegis Cluster Border Control Station. We'll go through these one at a time as to avoid confusion. Let's begin with the Aegis Cluster Border Control Station, or more commonly known as the Aegis Observation Station. The station stood as the enforcement station for the Aegis Cluster, with a single team consisting of 3 men known as the Spacemen, of whom were to observe the border of the Aegis Cluster, making sure no one could get in, and to warn those approaching that they were entering a restricted sector. If anyone had trespassed, then the team of spacemen would send a message straight to Earth, to the government, who would inform the Earth Defense Force of the issue. The station wasn't very big compared to other space stations. Inside would be the main control room, an airlock, the sleeping quarters, the kitchen, and the hygienic facilities. The station remains abandoned since the events of No Known Survivors, possibly due to the horrific scene that had taken place there. Let's move past the observation station, through the restricted system, and to the planet of Aegis VII, where the colony is awaiting us. The colony, like the Earth, was split up into several districts in each of the sectors surrounding the area specified for the planet's crack. These would be named as North, West, South, and East, with the appropriate code attached to the specific sector for the sector's labels. Underneath the colony was a set of tunnels that had been dug deep into the crust of the planet. These were called the Megavents, and these were a collective of catwalks and access ways. Like a subway system without the train or tram, these provided access to certain gravity tether mechanics and life support for the colony, but they were also used to travel to other sites faster and more efficiently by the maintenance workers and miners who were stationed in the colony. The appearances of the Megavents had been in the Dead Space Colony comic and the game Dead Space Extraction. Traveling back up the lift will take us out of the Megavents and into the districts of the colony. Here we'll be able to find such areas like the several maintenance bays, landing pads, shuttle bays, shops, recreational areas, and the residential blocks. However, the more notable locations are as follows: the Control Room Barracks, the Medical Lab, the Marker Excavation Site, the Gravity Tether Control Room, the Gravity Tether Core, Gravity Tether Operations A and B, Mission Square, the PSEC Headquarters. Let's go through these individual areas together, shall we? The Control Room Barracks is assumed to be where PSEC turns in their weapons after their day at work, or being where they pick up their weapons to start their day. However, the barracks is also fitted with a storage room that leads towards the Excavation Site, where Marker 3A had been cracked from the pedestal. The barracks is also fitted with a few sleeping bunks, which implies that either the workers sleep here, or there are day and night workers who will utilize these beds in 12-hour shifts, or perhaps more. Past the sleep bunks leads to the Gravity Tether control room, and on the other side of the room will be a door that leads to the Gravity Tether computer room, which would have been used like a server room that contains all of the programming for the mechanical side of the devices that would allow for the continental mass to be pushed out of the atmosphere, ready for harvesting. The Gravity Tether control room would be where the personnel would be monitoring the tether's performance, making sure that they are working consistently. In the event of a malfunctioning tether, the workers would contact the personnel nearby to fix the issue, located nearby to the Marker extraction site. Moving through the storage and decontamination chamber, we come to the Marker extraction site, where the Marker once stood atop the pedestal. Here is a platform that has been constructed over a pit, with a rail connected to it, extending over the pit over to the next area. This location was designed to extract the Marker and to transport it into the colony, as I'm sure we all know, but before we move on, nearby to the extraction site is another entrance, possibly another storage unit, used to hold vital equipment for the extraction teams, as seen in the beginning of Dead Space Extraction. Moving towards the massive bulkhead doors, we can see a holding area. Interestingly enough, the next set of doors cannot open until the previous doors have been sealed shut, which would have been used to pressurize the room, ready for the occupants to proceed into the following area, which is the Gravity Tether Operations B, and A will be located on the other side of the Gravity Tether core. This accessway would have been used not only to transport the Marker towards the landing pad, but to give workers and other personnel access to the inner machinery of the gravity tethers. Now we come to the main area of this location, the Gravity Tether core. This is what gives power to the gravity tethers, with a maintenance tunnel leading to a collection of panels that workers would navigate through in order to fix crosswires and electrical issues. The big industrial fans would be used to drive the hot temperatures away from the panels in order to prevent a fire from breaking out, similar to your computer fans. Leaving the technical areas and moving into the districts of the colony will bring us to the Mission Square location. This walkway is what would connect the districts together, allowing for more efficient navigation towards the megafend access ways, the shuttle port, the landing pad, and to the PSEC headquarters. The PSEC headquarters stands as the central authority for the colony. Its location overlooks the walkway we previously talked about. The building is similar to how our local law enforcement operates, with several prison cells located around the colony and several holding areas for the criminally and regularly insane. The medical lab is the colony's hospital, or the lack thereof. The med lab is exactly what it says on the tin, a lab, and doesn't possess a morgue for the deceased, as if the designers never intended for those working here to die. The lab is fit for the living, however, with a collection of different rooms and operating centers just in case of something happening. It also contains a psychology wing for the mentally ill patients. Inside resides Dr. Scarillo's office, where he would see his patients on a daily basis. The morgue that had been present on the colony had been a basement-level location that had been renovated to become a makeshift morgue unit. The residential blocks would be like one-bedroom apartments, and in other cases they would be family-sized ones, consisting of 2 or more bedrooms. However, each would come with their own industrial design, with most being located inside of complexes in each of the sectors. Not much is known about the layout for the station that had been constructed in the 23rd century, other than the station possessing living quarters, working stations, labs, area for storage, a landing pad, a life support station, and contamination holding cells. Moving away from the planet, we will come to the USG Ishimura, which is how we will be getting to the Sprawl, or Titan Station. While we wait, let's talk about the several locations on board the Planet Cracker, shall we? Here's the deal, however. I have already made a video like this before, so if you would like to know more about what we will be going through on board the Ishimura, then I'll put a link in the description for the Ishimura deep dive video, and the same for the Titan Station deep dive video, so you can gain some more juicy insight into the lives of the miners, personnel, and management there. However, I will be giving you a brief explanation of the purpose of each deck and location. So let's begin, shall we? The USG Ishimura was designed to house over 1,000 employees of the CEC on planet cracking operations. However, the ship wasn't just a mining ship, it was also a medical researching ship as well. Being the first of its kind, the Ishimura is the most famous planet cracker of all time. She got her name from Hideki Ishimura, who had designed and constructed the Shockpoint Drive, which allows ships to travel faster and more efficiently through space. The flight deck is the main entrance to the ship, with some access areas that lead to other decks and to an access point that would be used by workers and personnel once the ship had been clamped and docked. Inside this deck there would be the flight control rooms, the flight lounge, the tram unit, the maintenance bay, the tram control center, the maintenance access way, and the tram repair station. The engineering deck is the heart of the ship, with the location being responsible for maintaining power, as the engines work like a jet's engines. They will provide electricity to the rest of the ship, possibly through kinetic power. Here the engineers will make sure that the fuel line is continuously pumping fuel into the engines, ready for it to be ignited. The centrifuge is mainly used in conjunction with creating kinetic power to fuel the ship's gravity tethers and stabilizers. This deck also possesses a machine shop that would be used to craft certain parts or tools for jobs if those are not in stock. On the way to the centrifuge is a decontamination chamber that will be used to cleanse the occupant of any harmful bacteria, toxins, or debris thrown into the centrifuge due to the planet's crack. The crew deck is the living area for the miners, engineers, pilots, and other personnel with a management suite being reserved for the high-tier personnel, such as the captain, chief medical officer, or chief engineer. The crew deck is fitted with a mess hall, bar, plenty of recreational areas, and the sleeping quarters coming with their hygienic areas. The reason for such luxuries would be for maintaining physical and mental health along with a worker morale. If engineering is the heart of the ship, then the bridge is the brain of the Ishimura. From here, the personnel and pilots would be responsible for the direction the vessel would be heading in, just like the cockpit for a plane or bridge section for a seafaring ship. The bridge deck contains the mining administration, of whom would be in direct communication with the miners and perhaps the colonies they visit. The main atrium of which we have spoken about, the captain's nest being his or her private observatory equipped with emergency escape pods, communications and external access, which is self-explanatory. However, the external access would be used to repair hull damage and to reach the ADS cannons. The hydroponics deck is responsible for the food production and for creating oxygen with the use of plant life. From here, the greenhouses would grow food and produce oxygen, killing 2 birds with 1 stone very effectively. This section also can restore oxygen if needs be. For instance, if there is a toxin or toxic gas in the filtration system, the personnel can flush the ventilation system and restore them with fresh oxygen. This deck is also connected to the sewer line that would be used to transport waste and to recycle water. The sewers are also underneath the tram valley. Past the main control room will be the food storage area that will be used to store the goods for the demand of the crew and for intense situations. The maintenance deck is another extension of what we have previously spoken about with the flight deck, except it's intended to be used for long shifts with a sleeping block being present nearby, similar to how hospitals in our world possess sleeping rooms for doctors and nurses who are on duty for longer than 12 hours, or those doing back-to-back shifts. This deck also possesses 2 shuttle bays for emergency uses. The mining deck would have been used for breaking down the masses brought in from planet-cracking operations, along with the smelting of precious ores. The miners would then package the goods and take them to the ore storage deck. The deck possesses a massive elevator used for delivering cargo. Here there are 4 levels, with each of them being listed as A deck preparation, B deck mineral processing area, C deck extraction, and D deck maintenance. The ore storage deck is a massive area designed to hold tremendous amounts of ore, minerals, and other materials harvested in the planet's crack event. The deck also possesses a massive hatch, possibly being used to deliver the goods once the ship has landed at the platform. The medical deck is split off into 4 separate locations, first one being the ER, which contains the morgue, life support machinery, Dr. Mercer's office, and the intensive care unit, with a reception nearby. The second area is the research wing, used for, like the name suggests, to research new ways of saving lives. They also grow embryos so that lost limbs may be replaced in the future. Dr. Kine's office can be located here. The third area is close to the fourth, with it being the sick bays that would be used to care for the long-term patients that weren't in the need of the ICU. The fourth and final area would be the imaging diagnostics area that would be used to treat certain patients and to create medicines. This wing also possesses a cryogenics lab that may have been used to preserve certain bodies from rapid decay. The tram would have been used like a bus, train, or other public transport vehicle, in which it will travel along the rail at a certain speed, reaching stops as per its schedule. This would improve the efficiency of the workers, miners, and personnel, having them arrive on time with no excuses to spare. Well, I think we have just arrived at Titan Station. So, let's prepare to depart the USG Ishimura and leave off to the Sprawl and explore the lush array of environments it has to offer. Titan Station stands as a space station containing two cities, one being inverted and another being upright, with the two being connected through gravity orientating elevators that will rotate to compensate for the gravity of the city the occupants are traveling to. The Sprawl, as it was referred to as by the people who lived and grew up there, also possessed a government sector and the Titan mines. It would stand as an enterprise haven, allowing businesses to flourish in the recession. Similar to the Aegis Colony, the Sprawl would contain various shopping centers and recreational centers. However, it also held schools, various apartment blocks, CEC facilities, repair shops for incoming ships, and a church for the religion Unitology. The station's residential blocks are for use by the public. However, the Cassini towers are reserved for the Church of Unitology, since these areas are close to their church. The Titan Heights, however, would be used by the public. These would be nearly the same type of housing as the colonies across human space. The CEC facility houses various tasks with its heavy machinery and its fuel line system, where the workers will create fuel for miners and ships that need to refuel before departing the Sprawl. The fuel core that is located underneath the facility also provides electricity to the station. A point of interest here is that the CEC facility also has a way of transporting equipment and possibly fuel canisters to the Titan mines via a railing transport. The government sector is where the marker's experiments had been taking place. However, it also specialized in communications, food production, and houses a water treatment facility where liquids become recycled into fresh, sustainable water ready for consumption or usage once again. This is also where the Earth government's armed force would also reside, protecting the key personnel there. The government sector also is connected to the Titan mines, various tunnel networks, via a massive tram unit that dwarfs the Ishimura tram unit. Deeper inside the sector will be a number of marker laboratories, including the multiplayer map by the same name, but that will be for a different video. The Concourse is the Sprawl's main shopping center, with various stores and kiosks being all over the halls. In the main area there would be quite the view, with a massive set of windows overlooking the distant buildings along the ring. However, these two would have been used for a different reason, so that people will be able to see the national alerts on the massive exterior screens should the event of an emergency happen. Other stores, such as ones relating to the Church of Unitology, can also be found here, along with a nearby recruitment center. The Titan elementary schools are some of the state-of-the-art education systems, with each one being able to house children from toddlers all the way to the beginning of the advanced education. The schools would also possess various recreational areas, such as interior playgrounds and a gymnasium that can be transformed into a cafeteria or reorganized due to the event of a school play, with its automated systems with tables being lowered into the floor and vice versa. The school's teachers are also equipped to speak many languages so that a barrier between two individuals may never have to be tackled. The Titan Memorial Medical Center is a massive hospital with a nearby hangar bay for emergencies, such as for paramedics that are needed in the field or bringing in patients that are in dire need of immediate care and attention. The medical center also possessed a professional environment for those suffering from mental illnesses, in a psychiatrical ward fitted with interview rooms, ways of using stasis to treat cancer cells, and using machines to perform surgeries. The Church of Unitology is the home of the Unitologists, or at least it seems like it should be, as it is designed like many other places of religious works, with a big emphasis on the helix symbol of DNA, and that of the marker, which makes sense. The church has several libraries, a study room in their knowledge of the monoliths and of their martyr Michael Altman, Due to the separation between church and state, the church itself monitors its own premises with cameras being littered all over the halls and basilicas of the church. The transport hub is responsible for the safety of the public while they are using the tram and making sure that they are well maintained for the health and safety regulations and that the tram is arriving and departing on time. The tram's rail runs along the ring, going through all of the major populated areas so everyone can get to where they need to go on time. The Titan mines are within the last shard of Titan, with the miners constantly on the lookout for more ore and materials. However, these tunnels indeed have a purpose for being here, other than the simple harvesting. Once the shard had been milked for the resources, these tunnels will be renovated and then new expansions would have been added to the government sector, as this sector had already been built into the shard. Regardless, the mines had been so large that an industrial drill rig had been used inside. Even more interesting, the landing bay also possessed its own shielding as to stop the vacuum from affecting the occupants. The Sprawl also possesses a long list of disposal services throughout both of the cities, with garbage disposal tubes and water from showers, sinks, and even toilets going into a separate tube, which would end up in the city's water treatment center. The garbage tubes, however, would send the mess down into an area where the personnel and workers would piece them together into a tightly knit cube, and then they would send them down another tube to be crushed again in an industrial crusher, ready for them to be incinerated at the fuel core for them to be transmuted into fuel and then electricity as well. The solar array is connected to Titan Station via a massive elevator that would be used to transport large numbers of individuals. However, the array also has a living quarter for the administrator, but after the reactor's construction inside the CEC facilities, the array had been left to gather dust and to be supervised by Howard Phillips and a highly sophisticated AI system. The way the array would work is by gathering power from the sun to store, and then to use the power in conjunction with a beam cannon that would connect with an energy port back down at the city that would take the beam and siphon electricity from it. Well, with the Sprawl part of this tour out of the way, let's move on to the next part of our journey as we board this ship as we continue to the planet of Volantis. However, before we can get there, there will be those that we will be passing on the way, so let's go through them together, shall we? The Lunar Colony is as big as a large town, with most of it being comprised with residential blocks. However, there would be schools and recreational areas such as shopping centers. The businesses here would not be as various as Titan Station, but would contain organizations such as Dredger Corp. The most notable locations are as follows: the New Horizons train station, the shopping centers, Lunar Slums, the Top Apartments, and the Red Moon Apartments, which could be foreshadowing. The Mars colony size is about the same size as a normal city. From what we know, the planet had been terraformed to allow citizens to work and prosper there in peace. At least, that would be until the riots had begun, as mentioned in Dead Space Extraction. The most notable places are the Mars Capita, which is the capital of the planet, Union Square Mall, apartment buildings, schools, Church of Unitology, EarthGov headquarters, police stations, hospitals, and smaller stores littered around the civilization. Venus, as most people know, is the second planet leading away from the Sun. However, in the Dead Space universe, it is a holiday resort, with the Venus Waypoint, which also possesses a Church for Unitology. But at an unknown date, the planet would become an EarthGov colony. Uxor at an unknown date had become an EarthGov colony, presumably prior to Dead Space 2. The planet had the same density as the planet of Earth. Uxor in Latin also means wife. The colony would possess a few apartment blocks, schools, and recreational areas. However, it was primarily a research station for the Red Marker. The known inhabitants are as follows: John Carver, Tamara Carver, Dylan Carver, and Robert Norton. The most notable location would be the Shroud 4 facility, containing the Red Marker. Aspera was a penal colony in which the planet was used as one of the testing sites for one of the 3 markers located in the Gliese 581 system. The environment outside, however, was so violent that everyone needed to wear protective clothing when traversing the exterior areas, especially due to the low amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. In the case of Scenario 5, all marker test sites would be blacklisted as to prevent their discovery, with a restriction being held on the system. Another planet that the CEC had terraformed was Georgia 4, that used to be a barren landscape of dust. The planet would be farmed for its wide collection of crystal formations. The colonists that had been there would call the planet the BG. Interestingly enough, however, is that the CEC also had many bed and breakfast locations across the planet, giving us the impression that they aren't just in the mining and ship construction game, but the hospitality chain as well. However, the price would be steep, with them standing at 25,000 credits each. The landscape is quite beautiful, with many waterfalls, and the planet being complemented by the purple hydroxybutyric pools, a once-in-a-lifetime getaway location, it would seem. The core of the planet would give power to the civilization on the planet, and the capital is called Bankragur. Heading back in the opposite direction will bring us to Gliese, which has been a holiday destination for quite some time, with its beaches being described as beautiful beaches that reflect back at the occupants. It is also in the same system as Aspera and is 20 light-years away from Earth. Another EarthGov colony, the Heliopause Observer, is present in an unknown location. It is presumed that the colony was built to monitor the boundary where the sun's solar winds are stopped by the interstellar medium. Other than that, there really isn't that much information moving forward. Keyhole Station is a space station located in the Carina Nebula. It is mainly an Earth government research station and is the home for over 400 personnel, either in science or military, or at least it was. Being thought to have been located in the Proxima Centauri system, Kreemar was one of the testing sites for the red markers. However, due to a few mentions in the Dead Space history of logs, there is very little information to go off of about the planet and its history. Ptolemy Station was another research station used by the sovereign colonies, and by Ellie and her companions to triangulate Tau Volantis' position. This was done by loading specific pylons with 3 new markers, and using their readings and instruments to track the marker signal to find the master signal. From the book Dead Space Liberation, the station is in the shape of a large dish, with a lower section containing the pylons. Other than that, there is very little information moving forward. Saturn is a gas giant and the 6th planet from the Sun, as well being the 2nd largest planet in our solar system, and it's the planet that Titan Station orbits due to being built into the last remaining shard of the former moon, Titan, that had been cracked by the prototype orbital bombardment platforms. Scorpio 6 was a colony by an unknown faction and the planet is now left as an open wound in the galaxy due to a conflict between a group of unknown factions. Although, due to the limited amount of factions during the Resource Wars, it could be seen as the CEC and Earth Defense Force had been involved in the conflict. The location is also presumed to have been in 18 Scorpio. Shalanx III is the third moon of Gotha Cruz, which is a gas giant in a quadruple star system. For those of you that do not know this, a quadruple star system contains 4 suns, hence the name. The moon's settlement is called Shalanx City, which is located on the coast of a blue-green ocean. The city had been famous for how close it is situated to both the coast, the jungles, the cliffs, the marshes. The city stands as a tourist destination. Interestingly enough, however, the moon had been discovered first by the unidentified aliens, who could possibly be Tau Volantians. The settlement had only been referenced as the colony, as seen in Dead Space No Known Survivors. The only 2 details about this location is that Jane Gorthair had served on the planet prior to her assignment on Aegis VII, and that the appearance of the planet looks similar to Tau Volantis' climate, except the terrain looks a little bit more barren and cracked, from space that is. Vindauga had a segregation between the rich and the poor within the settlement, with the dome of the Marina Valley compound being the poorest location. The colony had a set of schools, businesses, and apartment blocks. Now we have arrived at our final destination of the Dead Space universe, that being the planet of Tau Volantis, which, like Aspera, has a cluster of space heat-seeking mines surrounding the planet. However, like previously spoken about, I have already spoken about the ships orbiting the planet, so we'll just focus on the locations on the planet's surface, or below it. So, let's begin, shall we? The main base on Tau Volantis was the Sovereign Colony Armed Forces main holding area. The areas of interest in this location are as follows: the Research Compound, the Palaeontology Sector, the Marker Containment, the Reaper Barracks, the Geology Sector, the Disposal Services, the Research Compound Silo, the several climbing stations, the Archaeology Warehouse, Facility 1, the Armory, the Central Command, the Apartments, Supply Depot 212, the Way Station, and Excavation Site 1. Supply Depot 212 was a storage facility that was built into the mountainous rock of the environment. The structure of the depot would be built with the following materials: concrete and steel. This outpost was to be used by storing food, ammunition, and various other supplies and equipment. The depot could be best described as a complex, with the space on the inside being massive, with a tram unit in the basement that would connect with other outposts and stations throughout Tau Volantis. Facility 2, or better known as the Research Compound, is of 2 facilities. For the SCAF on Tau Volantis, it had been constructed on top of a mountain in the intention to track the marker signal in their investigations of what the source was to be. The investigations would take the men down into the depths of the alien civilization and into their discovery of the alien machine. The silo, being a sector within the research compound, is the entry point into the alien city. The silo had been used to recover artifacts, specimens that had been frozen for eons, including necromorph specimens. They would accomplish this feat with the aid of a massive, roofless elevator, where the men could bring down supplies and workers could be brought down and back to the surface. Down the shaft, there were many platforms that had been built into the ice and rock that were mainly used for storage and holding areas, with many artifacts and specimens being held here. The other locations of this compound are as follows: the checkpoint entrance, the courtyard, the loading bay, the crane platform, the ordnance storage, the hydraulics and staging platform, and the ventilation system. The pipeline looks like it would have been used by a tram escorting personnel from the primary landing zone to the main base. The structures on top of the pipeline could have been used as observation decks, as well as miniature outposts, with them being located on the top part of the line, where workers would be able to keep warm, especially during the night, and be able to rest, with each holding many beds. Perhaps after construction, these buildings were used in the event a massive blizzard had appeared. The support structures were steel pylons that were bolted to the frames of the pipes. The structures around this area are as follows: Aloha Station, Hospitality Units 211 and 213. The Reaper Barracks is located near the Palaeontology Sector of the research compound. They were the personal quarters of the elite members of the SCAF, or as they were commonly known as, the 163rd Reaper Unit. Most disturbingly enough, however, a video can be seen playing in their quarters that seems to suggest that this unit and possibly others had been indoctrinated into complying with the order of Scenario 5, should it be given. Kind of reminds me of Order 66. The Palaeontology Sector is a sector of the research compound in which the scientists would go over the studies of the alien creatures known as the Volantians. However, they would extend over to the study of many artifacts found among the alien city, including markers. The scientists also managed to string up a snow beast in which they would study its anatomy. The locations within this area are as follows: the crossover bridge to biology, artifact analysis, Reaper Barracks, maintenance hallway, and Taphonomy Laboratory, or later dubbed as the Zoo. The scientists in their research on the necromorph anatomy had conducted several x-rays of the creatures. The marker containment is a warehouse used for containing several of the monoliths and storing them away for further study after Scenario 5 had been enacted. The door leading to this location would be locked down. The warehouse is a sub-area of the Geology Sector. However, there isn't as much information about this location, just like the others here, I'm afraid. But maybe some things are best left behind closed doors. This sector of the research compound had conducted in the geological research of the science division, which included the frozen alien bodies. The massive ice blocks would have been transferred to biology via a cargo lift. The entrance would be nearby to the silo compound. There was to be an access point that would lead back to the other sectors, however that has been blocked off due to unknown reasons, but if one were to theorize, it could have been blocked off due to a cave-in or something else. Leading up to the cargo lift, however, would show off another elevator leading into the disposal services location. Facility 1 is the outer cloister of the Sovereign Colony stronghold, with its massive walls extending out around the base. This location was to be seen as the nerve center for the entire operation, with the command center being present in the nearby building. This structure would have a table with a miniature figurine stronghold built on top of it. This was to be used to see where each unit had been stationed and to see which areas were left wide open to assault by their deadly enemy. This area would have been used to not only keep track of their forces, but to create strategies in times of greater peril. The layout of this part of the base was as follows: the perimeter, with that being a tall steel wall, with an elevator being present just outside of it. This area would have also been where weapons had been positioned for ease of access when under attack. Outside of the perimeter is the courtyard, that was a wide open area that also possessed a garage outside with snow speeders being present here. The central command, as previously spoken about, the tent city, with these being a wide collection of residential areas for the soldiers of the Sovereign Colony armed forces. The tents themselves have been made from a rough and durable material. These materials would have been necessary to keep the men warm in the winter nights. The artifact storage was a large structure used for, like the name suggests, storing the several artifacts, including but not limited to the markers. There were also skeletal remains of the Tau Volantians present here as well. This warehouse may have been used as temporary storage for the sovereign colonies until a proper home for them had been established. The Archaeology Warehouse had been where the scientists had conducted several excavations, and their primary task was to find artifacts and learn how the species here had lived, survived in their time, and to see how they were connected to the marker and the source of the signal. However, once again, there is very little information here, so let's move on. The armory had been where the main force of the sovereign colonies had deposited their weapons prior to and during Scenario 5. Here there is a staging area where soldiers would turn in their weapons and collect them. The armory had several levels that had been dug deep into the snow and ice. The biology sector had prided itself for cutting open specimens and learning from the biology of the aliens, the infected, and the necromorphs. However, upstairs, the sovereign scientists had also been experimenting with a machine that could pull information out of the alien Rosetta's brain. This was how they had learned of the traumatic and horrifying truth that had encouraged the usage of the Order Scenario 5. The sections to this area are as follows: Biological Laboratory, the Central Hall, the Storage Hall, the Rosetta Lab, the Neurology Section, and the Crossover Bridge. It is important to note here that each of the sectors does provide a way of sterilizing the corruption that had grown over panels, doors, and access ways, by using incendiary gases to burn the corruption or growths away. The gas itself could be hydrochloric acid that had been vaporized, or a set of chemicals that combust on contact with flesh, or organic material, or other flammable materials such as synthesized clothing. The way station had been a bunker in between the pipeline and Facility 1. Inside resembles a shed with various tools and spare parts lying around. However, there too is an elevator shaft that leads deeper underground. The bunker contains living areas such as sleep bunks, kitchens, hygienic quarters, and a communications center where the SCAF would use this bunker to organize supply drops by linking up with Supply Depot 212. Near to the communication center was a pumping station that had been used to pump fuel through the pipeline and to Facility 1 and the rest of the Sovereign Colony base. The alien city or the machine is a complex conduit system in which there isn't just a single area that can configure this machine, but a team would have to either travel back and forth or split up in order to configure this machine at the same time, as both conduits are on either side of the city. This location is centered beneath the mountain that the Sovereign Colony base had been built around. The structure of the city is split off into several catacombs and mazes, almost designed to test the next species to discover it, as those who do not have the willpower or the intelligence needed to progress will not do what needs to be done. Perhaps this could have been also a defense mechanism as well. Throughout the city, the aliens seem to be one with their machine in their own convergence. However, these are statues and idols of their once great civilization. Otherwise, they too would have been turned into necromorphs over the generations. Interestingly enough, however, the aliens seem to have used stasis abilities or kinesis as well. Perhaps they could use their minds to move objects as well, seeming as there were modules on the ground throughout the city that amplifies the power of kinesis and stasis, which would explain how they had constructed the machine within a matter of hours. The access points of each sector is too very fascinating for me, as the only way to open them is to speak in the language of the aliens themselves in a passcode that they had programmed the doors to activate upon hearing. The city looks to have been built primarily with rock, with the city looking as if it had been formed naturally with how smooth the environment looks. Once the sovereign colonies had arrived, however, they had discovered the city was rank with sticky webs that had developed over the eons of inactivity over here, which had been described as being very thick. Perhaps this could have been remnants of the corruption, or perhaps a variation of spiders had been at play here. After the cleanup had begun, they would construct several platforms, elevators, and bridges in order to reach their goals, including climbing rigs inside the spire of the machine. It's very interesting, this topic, as there were locations in the Dead Space universe that I did in fact not think had existed. It just goes to show you that even a horror series that prides itself on scaring the player, or at least creating some very disturbing histories and horrific sights and even horrific material to bear witness to, will also contain some silver linings with a colourful and magnificent underscore of beauty in the background to the gore. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, then give the video a like rating. Comment what you thought below and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you to all of my channel members for your extra support, going the extra mile for this channel. I deeply appreciate you, more than you know, and it helps me to be able to continue doing what I love. If you would like to become a channel member today, then have a look at the join button and see which of the free tiers is for you. Sign up to join the British Alliance today by hitting that subscribe button and ringing the notification bell, and I will see all of you among the cosmos, and be sure to have a good one.